Look at this war. A conflict that was expected to last weeks, now stretching into years. Cities scarred, economies shaken, and a battlefield where technology is evolving faster than ever before. But now, something feels different. Statements from Moscow suggest the war may be nearing an end. At the same time, fighting is intensifying. So what's really happening? Is this war finally approaching its final phase, or just entering a new, more dangerous chapter? Let's break it down. The biggest headline right now comes from Russian President Vladimir Putin, who recently stated that the conflict may be coming to an end. That single sentence has sparked global debate, because Putin is known for choosing his words carefully. He doesn't speak casually on matters like this. But here's the reality. Despite those comments, the battlefield tells a very different story. Instead of slowing down, attacks have actually increased in recent weeks. Both Russia and Ukraine are launching strikes deeper into each other's territory. Drones are no longer just tactical tools, they've become strategic weapons capable of hitting targets hundreds, even thousands of kilometers away. Ukraine has struck Russian oil refineries, military facilities, and logistics hubs far behind the front lines. In response, Russia continues launching large-scale missile and drone attacks across Ukrainian cities. So while leaders talk about peace, the war itself is escalating. Right now, the battlefield is locked in what analysts call a stalemate. Neither side is making major breakthroughs. Russia controls roughly 20% of Ukrainian territory, but its advances have slowed significantly in 2026. At the same time, Ukraine is not simply defending. It is actively counterattacking in key regions, forcing Russia to divert troops and resources. These localized offensives may seem small, but they are strategically important. They prevent Russia from building momentum. One of the biggest reasons for this stalemate is the rise of drone warfare. This war has become the first large-scale conflict where drones dominate the battlefield. From small surveillance drones to AI-powered strike systems, both sides are using them in ways never seen before. And right now, Ukraine appears to have regained an edge in this area. Instead of only targeting soldiers at the front line, Ukrainian drones are now hitting supply lines, fuel depots, and troop concentrations before they even reach combat zones. In fact, some reports suggest that the majority of Russian losses now occur before soldiers even arrive at the battlefield. This shift has changed everything. War is no longer just fought at the front line, it's fought deep behind it. Another major development is the increasing use of autonomous and semi-autonomous systems. Ground robots are now being used for logistics, mine laying, and even direct assaults. In some cases, Ukrainian forces have reportedly captured positions using only drones, without sending in infantry. It sounds like science fiction, but it's happening right now. At the same time, both countries are facing serious internal challenges. Russia is dealing with economic pressure, rising inflation, and labor shortages. Sanctions continue to impact industries, and there are growing concerns about recruitment. Reports suggest that the rate of new soldiers joining the Russian army has declined compared to previous years. If losses continue to outpace recruitment, Russia may be forced into another wave of mobilization, something that could be politically risky. Ukraine, on the other hand, is also under immense strain. Its economy has been heavily damaged by the war and relies heavily on support from Europe and other allies. There are also growing issues with manpower, leading to stricter conscription measures. Videos of forced recruitment have sparked debate and concern, highlighting the human cost of the conflict. War fatigue is becoming real on both sides. People are tired, families are exhausted, and the longer this war continues, the harder it becomes to sustain it, politically, economically, and socially. That's why Putin's comments about the war possibly ending are so important. But here's the key question. What does ending the war actually mean? For Russia, it likely means securing control over occupied territories and ensuring Ukraine cannot join NATO or become a military threat. For Ukraine, it means restoring its territorial integrity and maintaining full independence. These goals are fundamentally incompatible, and that's the biggest obstacle to peace. There have been attempts at ceasefires. Recently, both sides agreed to short, temporary pauses in fighting. There was even talk of a 3-day ceasefire and prisoner exchanges. But these efforts are fragile. Each side accuses the other of violations, and none of these agreements have led to long-term solutions. Trust is extremely low, and without trust, negotiations become incredibly difficult. Meanwhile, international involvement continues to shape the war. European countries are increasing their support for Ukraine, providing financial aid, weapons, and advanced defense systems. Billions of euros are being committed to keep Ukraine's military and economy running. At the same time, the United States appears less focused on Ukraine than before, especially with other global tensions rising. This shift has pushed Europe to take a more active role. And then there's the broader picture. This war is not just about Russia and Ukraine anymore. It has become a testing ground for modern warfare. Military experts around the world are watching closely, studying how drones, AI, and new technologies are changing the battlefield. The lessons learned here will shape future conflicts. Another critical factor is energy and infrastructure. Ukraine continues to target Russia's oil production, causing noticeable drops in output. These strikes are not just military, they're economic. By hitting energy infrastructure, Ukraine is trying to weaken Russia's ability to fund the war. Russia, in turn, continues to target Ukraine's energy grid, especially during colder months, aiming to disrupt daily life and weaken public morale. It's a war of attrition, not just military attrition, but economic, technological, and psychological attrition. So where does that leave us? On one hand, we have a battlefield that is stuck. Progress is slow, costly, and limited. On the other hand, we have increasing pressure from citizens, from economies, and from global politics to bring this war to an end. Putin's statement may reflect that pressure. It may also be strategic, an attempt to open the door for negotiations, reduce international isolation, or gain leverage in future talks. But words alone don't end wars. Conditions do. And right now, those conditions are not aligned. Ukraine is still fighting to reclaim its land. Russia is still pushing to secure its objectives. Neither side appears ready to make the kind of compromises needed for a lasting peace. So while the idea of the war ending is being discussed more openly, the reality is far more complicated. This conflict could continue as a slow, grinding stalemate, or it could suddenly shift through a breakthrough, a political change, or an unexpected escalation. That's what makes this moment so important. We are at a point where the war could either wind down or evolve into something even more intense. And as we move further into 2026, one thing is clear: time is no longer clearly on one side. Both Russia and Ukraine are feeling the weight of this war, economically, militarily, and socially. The question is, who reaches their limit first? And when they do, what happens next? Because the end of a war is not just about stopping the fighting, it's about what comes after. And that part may be even more uncertain than the war itself.